Hey YouTube mob, I've got something super exciting for you today. Check this out, check this out. Haha! Sucked in. We are going to be talking about painting, all the final details. Did I say final details? Finer details of rolling, brushing, mixing paint. Paintbrush cam. This is revolutionary stuff, people. You really didn't think I'd be painting, did you? Rightio, so this is a 1928 Douglas. Its model designation is D28, and this particular model was built to play motor-ball. So motor-ball was a version of soccer or football that the British played on motorbikes. There's a little bit of footage on YouTube, so I'll put a link in and I'll see if I can maybe just grab a little bit. I'll just put it in here, and if you have a look you can see that one of the team is pretty well all Douglases. So Douglas built this model to play motorball, and it's got a few features that made it particularly adaptable for motorball. That is the very low centre of gravity, because the motor hangs quite low. Pretty unique to this model is the gear lever is quite low down here, and the reason why it was low is if you came up to the ball whilst you're sitting on the bike and changing gears, you can also get down and grab the ball or manipulate the ball or whatever you wanted to do. It also had tilting foot pegs, which is a pretty unusual feature, I guess, so the foot pegs don't drag in the dirt. And of course it's overhead valve for a little bit of extra performance. So this engine is a 350 twin, as you can see, overhead valve. And the problem with this particular model was that this engine configuration was based on what they call the EW 350. Now the EW was just a side valve 350 and didn't make anywhere near the amount of power that this engine makes. So of course they didn't last very long, because it has pretty much a standard EW crankshaft in it, clutch, gearbox. It's all fairly well identical to the side valve 350. So these things will live fast, die young. So it's very hard to find one that's in running condition these days. And as you can see, there's almost no fins on the head to keep it cool. So they ran hot. And of course the rear cylinder doesn't get much airflow. Doesn't help matters much. All the exposed valve gear. This gives it that antique look, doesn't it? It looks really good. Anyway, the mission today is I've got to pull the motor out of it because I want to pull it apart. There's a big rally on this weekend, vintage rally, that I'm going to ride. So I'm going to pull the motor out, strip it down, make sure it's not going to break halfway through the ride. And yeah, we'll take you along. We'll pull the motor out and we'll pull it apart and see how it works, eh? there she sits. It's really not that hard to pull out, is it? Pretty easy, really. I don't know what that motor would weigh. That motor would weigh, oh, not very much, maybe 30 kgs perhaps. It's a light motor. Rightio, first bit is to get the clutch off here. I suppose you should get something to put nuts and bolts in. That's always handy. This clutch is making a lot of noise, so I want to investigate why that is. That's the first cab off the rank, I suppose you could say. This is the clutch spring tensioner. So if your clutch is slipping, you can tighten this up a little bit. Or if it's not slipping, you can loosen it a bit and make it easier to pull. You can see the clutch springs in there, down in there. So the more you tighten this up, the more it squashes the clutch springs. There we go. Clutch springs, retaining plate. Yay! Alright, we've also got the oil pump drive under here. It's a 2-piston, so it's got a small piston, pumps it out of the tank, and a big one that pumps it into the engine. But it's total loss system. We'll discuss that in more detail later on. There's all the cam gear. That's your crankshaft drive gear there. And then of course you've got your upper and lower cams, your exhausts and your inlet cams, and you've got your Maggie drive up there. Now behind here, where you can see some freshly polished alumina, there's actually a big crack that runs right through the crankcase there. And I had to make a plate to go behind there to hold it all together. So that's another reason why I want to pull it apart and just have a look at that, make sure all these cam gears are all looking good still, because all these were completely worn out. So I had to redo the bushes, had to remake the pins. There's a fair bit of work in here, and I just want to have a look, make sure nothing's wearing out too quick. Alright, these flywheels are notoriously difficult to get off. Oh, caramba. Oh, there she goes. Oh, it's too tight. It's too tight. I think it's too tight. I don't like it. There she goes. That's how tight it was. Alrighty. Oh, we need that. That's the actual clutch drive there. And this is the thrust bearing. So that's the thrust bearing. So the clutch works by, so you got your clutch cable on here, and you can see this whole thing, when you pull the clutch cable, goes up and down, and that in turn, that bearing race runs in there, and it pushes in there, and it separates the two clutch plates inside here. Ingenious Douglas system. Yes, I know what you're going to say. Oh, is there a tightening sequence? Yes. And no. Cast iron heads with copper washers. No need to fuss too much about them. Oh yeah, there's a couple here you can't get to, I remember now. Yes. Gotcha, you little rat bag. Oop. Oop, oop, oop. Careful. So we'll just go top and bottom, and that'll be rear, hey? No, I don't know now. Rear, yep. Top rear, bottom rear. We'll have a close look at all the rest of all this. That soot, that's pretty normal for a total loss oil system that has no, this has no oil rings in it. There's a bit of oil in there. Oh, jeepers, what's going on? There's some serious carbon on that side. Yeah, there's quite a bit of carbon on there. On the front, must be getting a lot more oil. Or we've damaged something. That board looks pretty good actually. Oh, there is a little bit of a squishy scratch mark there. I know what that's from. I'm not sure if that was. They did have a couple of little marks in there originally, so it could be from that. Oh, that's one of the original pistons there. Cast iron piston, and this one's had the crown welded up at some stage. It's had a hole in it. Someone's repaired it and welded a plug in the top of the piston. Alright, drum roll, piston number 2. That ball looks better. Yeah, this one's got a definite score mark. Where is it? You can feel it with your fingernail. Yeah, there. Quite a decent line in there. That's probably why there's a bit more oil getting into that one. Unfortunately, I had to go a bit deeper than I wanted because it looks, from what I can see in there, like the main bearing has drifted in towards the crankcase. And that is not good. Not good at all. Because if it's come loose, it'll certainly damage it. Yep, the bearing's staying on the crankshaft. It's not a good sign. Yeah. Now what I also noticed is the oil seal is loose as well. That's not good. So that's bearing's probably been spinning in the casing. Oh, it's just not actually holding on anywhere at all. Yeah, not so good. Not so good at all. That's a pain in the butt, that bearing being loose in there. You can see someone has at some stage peened that to keep the bearing tight. This was a new bearing when I built the motor. Maybe I can Loctite it in there. But the problem is, way too loose on there as well. Well, it's the next day. I had, I really wasn't too sure what I was going to do about this problem here, which is the fact that the bearing is essentially just loose on there, which is very bad. It means that that's going to spin in the bearing and wear out. And the other problem, of course, is that it's loose in the crankcase as well. So I think what I might have to do here, come on, cut, right, sorry, right, okay. So what I'm going to have to do here, I think what I'm going to do is just get a thin shim. I'm just going to measure it and see how much shimmage I can put in here. Heat the whole crankcase up and drop it in with the shim. Should hold it. But this one here is the problem. This really needs to be built up. This shaft needs to be built up, but that's not going to happen. You'd have to almost spray weld it. You could build it up with bronze or something like that, but you're going to have to get it red hot, and that's going to affect the hardness of the metal. That's not going to be the right way to do it. So I'm going to zinc plate this shaft, just this bit, because all it probably needs is, you know, 200th of a mil on there. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to zinc plate that bit of the shaft, then I'll whack it in the lathe and just smooth it down. We'll see if that's going to work anyway. It's totally experimental.